Okay, welcome everybody, and thank you so much to everyone for coming along today and for inviting me to be one of the speakers. I'm really excited to be part of this particular panel entitled Things Around Us. Throughout my research, I've always tried to explore the things around us that perhaps we take for granted, that perhaps are mundane, that often perhaps are invisible. And I've often argued throughout my work that we risk ignoring these at our peril. So it's very important to pay attention to those things around us that perhaps we do take for granted and don't always see. So the title of my paper today is The Return of the Housewife, Why Are Women Still Cleaning Up? And I want to begin the presentation today by repeating a few common tropes about housework. So housework is good for you. Housework sparks joy. Housework is beautiful. Housework is glamorous. Housework is key to a happy family. Housework shows that you care. And housework is women's work. I want to ask in the paper today where these popular tropes come from. And in particular, how is it that they persist after decades of feminist activism? I also want to shed light on the stubborn persistence of global gendered inequalities of housework. So for a long time, feminists have argued that the unequal division of domestic labour not only hinders women's ability to fully participate in public life, but also that the drudgery associated with those never-ending demands of housework as a set of soul-destroying and repetitive tasks, is also fraught with anxiety and compulsiveness. So famously, Simone de Beauvoir, in The Second Sex, argued that housework is a torturous flight from self. And Betty Friedan, in her seminal study of depression among suburban North American housewives, talked about the feminine mystique. And these depictions of the heroic and pious housewife are certainly nothing new, as the 17th century Dutch masters remind us. The white bourgeois housewife is a direct product of wider processes of consumer capitalism, post-colonialism, and patriarchy. She has long been worshipped and venerated, seen as heroic, stoic in times of crisis, the heart and the soul of the family and the home. And yet, her work, those particular tasks of housework, are very rarely celebrated. They're either invisible or else devalued and outsourced as very low-paid labour, often to the poorest women in society. So almost 50 years have passed since Silvia Federici wrote her seminal essay, Wages Against Housework, in which she described the occupational diseases of the housewife. It's also half a century since Selma James founded the Wages for Housework campaign. And yet, gendered inequalities around domestic labour remain stubbornly persistent. And in fact, rather than working less, as James had demanded in her address to the 1972 National Conference of Women in Manchester, women in particular continue to face a raft of new and intensified domestic demands. This is a campaign slogan on a tea towel that was printed by Spare Rib magazine in the 1970s. So I want to move on to the present day, 50 years later, and think about the contemporary phenomenon of cleanfluencing, which has become one of the most popular social media trends, especially on Instagram and TikTok. Cleanfluencing gained particular prominence during the COVID-19 pandemic, whereby social media became increasingly used, particularly by women, as a way of sharing a myriad range of cleaning and household survival tips with their followers. Of course, many of the tips that are shared are not new, but this digital format, generally self-filmed video footage, alongside uplifting, popular music, has proved a huge success, with many of the most popular cleanfluencers regularly gaining hundreds of thousands, and sometimes, as with somebody like Mrs. Hinch, who you may have heard of, millions of followers. And the COVID-19 pandemic saw the intensification of the unequal distribution of housework and saw more women making regular use of social media, often using this to share memes as a humorous response to unprecedented and stressful circumstances. These are just two examples of memes that I've collected in my research. These witty and often ironic rebuttals often appear among pages and pages of posts offering hacks, motivation, and inspo to keep homes clean, tidy, and well-organized. In a hastily pulled Home Office campaign called Stay Homes, Save Lives, 4 cartoon images of homes depicted women ironing, homeschooling, sweeping floors, and only one of the images featured a man who was, of course, relaxing on the sofa. The then Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, made a point of thanking mums everywhere for their lockdown contribution, again compounding the idea of women's rightful role as chief arbiters of the home and as managers of the domestic sphere, and also echoing centuries-old rhetoric around heroic mums whose duty it is to step forward to save the day in times of crisis. Now, one of the most ubiquitous cleanfluencing genres is the fast-paced video reel. So a single 30-second reel might include a plastic bin being rinsed with a shower head, a kettle being filled with white vinegar, boiled and rinsed, a vacuum cleaner being pushed in neat lines up and down a carpet, a smaller handheld vacuum sucking up dirt from the corners of a room, a bright pink liquid being poured round the rim of a toilet, a scented candle being lit. The videos feel almost hypnotic in their pace, filmed against catchy music, often with uplifting lyrics. I'm a survivor. I wouldn't have it any other way. When love takes over, I'm broken and it's beautiful. And this music masks the ordinary sounds of housework. Tap to tidy is a popular digital trend manifesting the idea that housework need not be exhausting, difficult, time-consuming, and monotonous. On the contrary, with the right skills and attitude, it can be achieved quickly, effortlessly, and as magical as a fairy tale. The seemingly never-ending cleaning stories on Instagram and TikTok are appealing and seductive because, in tap-to-tidy fashion, it makes the impossible, an endlessly bright, clean, and tidy home, seem achievable. And Stacey Solomon's best-selling book of the same name was published in 2021, and in true relatable style, Stacey announced the launch of her book personally to her Instagram followers in a quasi-glamorous, filtered photo shoot, wearing loungewear and fluffy slippers, but with perfect makeup and hair, a beaming smile, and holding the book towards the camera. It represents a strange sort of heavily stylized and very carefully curated relatability that has come to define the cleanfluencers, that is at once aspirational and relatable. So looking at cleanfluencing accounts, I am struck by how many of the activities depicted in the videos are fundamentally no different to processes and practices that are as old as time: mopping, sweeping, and wiping. After all, women have long been lured with the promise of ever new labour-saving devices and inundated with domestic tips and advice. But what is different this time round is the entertaining, the expertly filmed and edited video montages, and moreover, the promise of self-care, fun, happiness, and joyful experiences that we are promised housework will offer. So cleanfluencers also habitually devote a significant amount of their content to discussing their mental health. Interestingly, more medicalized terminology like stress, anxiety, or depression are avoided in lieu of more euphemistic descriptors like overthinking, having a day off, and it's okay not to be okay. So being confessional and sharing intimate feelings and thoughts around mental health adds to the relatability of the Cleanfluencers, reminding followers of the similarities between them, of the invisible thread connecting their experiences of anxiety. I'm not sure if you can see, but in the third image here, we see the cleaning cloth, the cleaning products, a scented candle, and also a packet of antidepressants. The Procter & Gamble Instagram account recently renamed itself The Joy of Clean, which I think echoes what I've been saying about that increasing link between housework and mental health. And in 2021, the cleaning brand Minky launched a campaign alongside the Samaritans, inviting consumers to design their own positive Minky antibacterial cleaning pad that, it is promised, will promote positivity, kindness, and mental well-being. I think this is the front cover of my book, which is quite a nice place to conclude. Yeah. So just to say a few words in conclusion, the Cleanfluencers are the latest in a long line of public figures who have been made famous for imparting their rules around and knowledge of housework onto their followers. We might think of the cleaning influencers who came before social media. People like Mrs. Beaton, for example, might be an early example. These new representations of housework as fun and as a type of self-expression add an extra layer to the long-standing myth that, done properly, housework has a kind of magical ability to transform homes, lives, and families. And yet, one of the most enduring myths of the last century is that of the happy, content housewife. It's a myth which finds its most recent incarnation in the 21st century digital housewife, who ascribes her happiness to a clean, tidy, and well-organized home, seeking solace and order in her domestic cleaning rituals and practices. And I shall end it there.